Hello friends, I'm Tim Wildsmith, and these are my favorite books about the Bible. So I recently got a message from one of my viewers, a guy named Johnny, and he said, "Hey Tim, have you ever thought about doing a video where you talk about some of your favorite books about the Bible and about Christianity?" And I was like, that's a really great idea, Johnny. I'm going to get on that. So that's what this is. This first video is going to be my favorite books about the Bible. This is not about Christianity and theology in general, because I literally have bookshelves from seminary and stuff. I would have hundreds of books in here if I wanted to show you my favorite books. So I'm going to focus in this video on my favorite books about the Bible. I'm going to do this stack right here, which are kind of a miscellaneous stack of books, and then I'm going to show you 3 different other types of study tools about the Bible that I think are really helpful. So before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you to Johnny for this idea. So if you have other ideas, please let me know. These are my favorite books about the Bible. Okay, 7 miscellaneous books that I really like. This first one is called How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth by Gordon Fee and Douglas Stewart. I think this Bible, it says on the top of this one, over 900,000 copies sold, but it's probably over 1 million by now. This is a well-known book, and it's really just kind of marching through the Bible, what it is, how to find a good Bible translation, just a beginner's guide really to reading the Bible, and then it kind of marches through the different types of books in the Bible and the different sections of the Bible. Really fascinating book. There's just a lot of good stuff in here. It's very approachable. I was assigned to this book for one of my seminary classes, but I think it's a book that a lot of people can read and get a lot out of. In that same vein, here's a couple books. These are also books from seminary. They're a little bit deeper and more academic. One is called Seized by Truth from Joel B. Green. He's one of my professors at Fuller Theological Seminary, and Michael J. Gorman's Scripture, an Ecumenical Introduction to the Bible and Its Interpretation. These are a little bit more of a deeper analytical look at how we interpret the Bible, how we read it in certain ways. It does cover a lot of the same stuff as this one, kind of the big picture ideas of the Bible. But I would say these are books that say, what is the Bible? How do we approach it? What's the best way to study the Bible? That sort of things. And they're really thoughtful ways to look at that. So those are 3 really good ones. This one I love. I ran across this book kind of by accident. It's called Scripture and the Authority of God by N.T. Wright. If you're in the UK or other places in the world, I think it has a slightly different title. It'll say Tom Wright over there. But this is a Bible. This is a book that talks about what we mean when we talk about the authority of Scripture. And N.T. Wright says early on in this book that really we're talking about, when we say the authority of Scripture, it's like a suitcase. It's a small phrase that we can pack a lot into. And he talks about what we're really saying is the authority of God exercised through Scripture. And this is a small, short book that says, how does the Bible have authority? How does God have authority through the words of the Bible? Where have we maybe gotten off track a little bit? How can we get back on track? Very thoughtful, easy to read, really insightful look at the authority of Scripture and why the Bible matters in a big sense. So I really like this book for that. Now, more of a historical book. This is called A History of the Bible. It's by John Barton. This is, if you look up, best books about the Bible on Google, this is going to be one of the ones that shows up. It is a thick book. It's got tiny little font, and it marches through literally, it's a historical analysis of the Bible. It's a recap. It's really dense. I read this earlier this year. Actually, I think I read it over parts of last year and this year. I loved it. It's a challenging book. It's written from an interesting perspective, but it's really marching through the history of how the Bible developed over time. A lot of that stuff about Greek manuscripts and Hebrew and all that stuff, but it's fascinating. So if you want to do a deep dive and read a book for a year, you can put this on your nightstand. It'll be really interesting, but I really did appreciate this book. Okay, now a couple of different ones. This one is called Santa Biblia. It's by a writer named Justo Gonzalez. I was assigned this for seminary. The subtitle is The Bible Through Hispanic Eyes. I can't tell you how much I love this book. Really short little book. And I'd say the key word for this book for me is perspective. It was reading this book from Dr. Gonzalez that made me realize that there are people who see things differently than I do. And he has a perspective. He talks about the Hispanic perspective of reading the Bible for him. And I was like, oh, he sees things differently than I do. And this is one of those things I think is really important for this day and age, because a lot of times when we're interacting like this with strangers on the internet, I'll be honest, I get comments from people that are like kind of hurtful to me. I've had people accuse me of heresy and things like that because I like N.T. Wright, or I did a commentary review of N.T. Wright's commentary, and it's like, what I often want to do is, I wish, you can't do this in the comments, but I wish I could slide this book across the table and say, read this book, because it talks about how based on where you're from and where you grew up and what church you went to and what happened in your family and what part of the world you're in, you have a perspective that shapes how you see the world, including how you read Scripture and how you understand the Bible. That's what this book is all about. And sometimes I think there are certain things that need to be truth, that we need to be able to come to an agreement on. But there are certain things that you're going to learn something. I loved being in seminary with people from all over the world. I went to Fuller Theological Seminary, and I was in classes with people who were from different denominations than me and from different places than me. And when I allowed myself not to be so like, hey, I see things this way and this is the right way, but I opened myself up to seeing the Bible through someone else's eyes and to hearing someone else share about what that verse means to them, and it means something totally different to them than it meant to me. And I started going, well, what's the right? And there wasn't a right answer to that verse. It was how it hit the different people. And that's, you got to be careful how you go into that territory, but a really thoughtful book. So if you want to read a quick read and just kind of gain some of that new perspective, this is a great book to do that. And last but not least, this is called What is the Bible? From Rob Bell. Now I know, if Rob's watching this, which I doubt he ever will, that Rob can be a controversial figure. He's written some things and he's fired some people up. But this is a good book. I don't agree with everything that Rob has to say in this book, but I'm an adult. I can read a book and not have to agree with everything they say in it. But there's a lot of good stuff in this book. I have recommended this to several people when I talk about what it's been like to go to seminary and to study the Bible. I'm like, man, there's this book by Rob Bell called What is the Bible? And it's kind of like a crash course, a Cliff's Notes version of some of the stuff that I learned in seminary. It's really easy to read. It's really simple, but Rob knows a lot about the Bible. He knows a lot about the theology of the Bible and the history of that, particularly that first century Jewish culture that Jesus was a part of. He knows a lot about that, and this is a thoughtful book. It's got a lot of good resources in it. And again, I don't agree with everything, but if you're just wanting like a Cliff's Notes version of how do we approach the Bible, where some of these are like deeper versions of that, that's a very good version of that I think is worth considering with your time and your money. Okay, now I want to tell you about 3 different types of books that I think are helpful to have in your library. The first is commentaries. Now, I know a lot of people think of these like deep, thick academic commentaries, single books of the Bible in one volume. A lot of people think of those as something that, professors or pastors are going to be using, more heady academic things. And that's true, but I've found that studying a book of the Bible, like I did a study of the Gospels, I loved reading commentaries. As I read and studied the Bible, I would then dig into a commentary like this that was like a deep dive. This is a massive 400-page book all about the Gospel of Mark. I really think that's helpful. So if you want to do a deep dive into the Bible, getting a good commentary set or buying individual volumes is definitely something to consider. I like this. It's called the New Testament Library. I have several, that it's got these 3 stripes on it. That's how you know that it's the New Testament Library. I have several commentaries from this series. My friend Brandon gave me an entire set of the Word Biblical Commentary, the Old Testament and the New Testament, and I love these. These are kind of very similar in that world. I've also talked about N.T. Wright's commentary series called The New Testament for Everyone. That's a really great one. It's more of an easy to approach. It's smaller, it's simpler, but it's really thoughtful. It's kind of more devotional in style. And I also have the Old Testament for Everyone series from John Goldingay, which is very similar to that. So I definitely think as you're doing Bible study, not just reading a book about the Bible, but as you're doing Bible study, it's good to have some commentaries to mix in there as you're studying to really help you understand and interpret what you're reading in the Bible. Okay, the second category of book that I recommend is introduction. So whereas the commentaries that I just told you about are a verse-by-verse deep dive into an individual book of the Bible, introductions are more usually a New Testament introduction, an Old Testament introduction, that sort of thing, where it's a big book. Some of these are big books, but it covers the entire New Testament or the entire Old Testament. I really love this one. It's called The New Testament, a Historical and Theological Introduction from Donald Hagner. He was a professor at Fuller Theological Seminary where I got my MDiv, and this is kind of like a summation of all of his work and his study over the years of his career. It's really great. So it's just kind of marching through the New Testament and giving you a big picture, but a detailed big picture of the entire New Testament. Also, one that came out last year, N.T. Wright and Michael Bird, The New Testament in Its World. This is obviously a very popular book, and it has done really well. It's a very similar thing. It's kind of giving you a wide-angle lens of the New Testament, but it's hard to say wide angle because they go into so much detail. If you're studying a book of the Bible, you're not going to have as much as a commentary would have on each individual book of the Bible, but it's a lot of information in one of these books. And I also like these two from Fortress Press. I had these for seminary. There's an introduction, a short introduction to the Hebrew Bible from John J. Collins, and then this is called Anatomy of the New Testament from Spivey, Smith, and Black. These are, again, they go through all of the different books and the different types of books and the sections in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I think these are just ways to go a little bit deeper into knowing what you're reading, why it's important, how to go about studying it and interpreting it. So these introductions are really helpful in that sense. Last but not least is Bible dictionaries. These are what you think they are. You look up a term, you look up a word or a phrase, and it's going to give you more information about it, but it's usually a little bit more in-depth, a little bit more detailed. There's sometimes some cross-references or places to look for other words and connections. So it's deeper than a normal dictionary, and I really think that it's helpful when you're reading the Bible, when you're studying, to have something like this that you can access. These three that I have in my library are the Erdman's Bible Dictionary, the HarperCollins Bible Dictionary, and this is a cool one. It's called the Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospel. So it's kind of more of a focused look from IVP Academic. But these are all really great tools where I think I often find when I'm studying something, it's like, man, that's an interesting phrase. That seems to be a key theme in this passage. I'm going to grab one of my dictionaries and look it up, and it'll just kind of open things up for me more and give me more perspective on that thing that I'm reading. So there you have it. These are my favorite books about the Bible. If I didn't include a book that you think should be on my list, I want you to leave a comment and let us know what it is, if it's one of your favorite books about the Bible, so we can check that out. And I'll put links in the description of this video to where you can find these and purchase a copy if you're interested. Thank you to Johnny for asking me to do this video. It's a really great idea, so I hope this is helpful to you, Johnny, and to others. Again, these are not all the books in the world about the Bible, but these are just some of the ones that I've come across in my journey of faith that have helped me as I think about, process, read, and study the Bible. They've helped me love the Bible even more, and so I really love, I'm thankful to these different authors for writing these books and for the different people who've handed them to me, whether it was as part of a syllabus for seminary or just someone who recommended a book to me. I really am thankful to have these in my life, and they've really helped me deepen my faith, which is really awesome. So yeah, leave us a comment if you have questions or you just want to chat about these books. Definitely subscribe to the channel, like this video if you will. That'll help it to get out there to more people. And find us on Facebook and Instagram. We have great community that we'd love for you to be a part of. Thanks so much for watching this video. We'll see you next time.